A very good evening, everyone. Welcome you all to the international webinar on occupational health in construction industry, actionable solution for emerging issues. Today we have four esteemed speakers to guide us on what can be done to deal with the occupational health issues and what precautionary measures can be taken uh, to improve the health of employees who are working in our construction industry. So, without further delay, I request the first speaker, Dr. Krishna Nirmal Sen, who is chair of ICOH Scientific Committee in the Occupational Health in the Construction Industry and as well as president of ASSP India chapter. Currently, Dr. Sen is leading the AHS team of M&M, L&T M&M SPG. And Dr. Sen is basically an engineer with 35 years of experience in the construction industry. And apart from his senior level assignments, he's also a occupational health safety expert committee of Indian Chamber of Commerce. Also, is the leading the chair as a chair. And similarly, he has several professional qualifications from the national and international organizations. And in addition to his leadership roles, he is also contributing and nurturing and grooming the many occupational health and safety professionals engaged in India as well as abroad. So, without taking any further time, I request Dr. Sain to take this. Dr. Sain, it is.
Yeah, am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think there was some problem in the system. Yeah, okay. So thank you, Murli, and of course, greetings to all the ICO members. I am very glad to be joined with Dr. Gogilan Sevaratnam, who is also the Scientific Committee Chair for Occupational Medicine. And we recently met in Paris, and from there we got connected to the other speakers, Dr. Mona Lisa Shahu, who is also in a very prestigious organization in central government based out of Kolkata. And also Dr. Priyadarshini, who is now in USA and also became a recently member of ICO. So I'm very happy to have a very diverse team with two medical doctors, one ergonomist, and myself being an engineer. See, we come from a industry which is, sometimes some people like to call it as 3D, dirty, dangerous, and demanding. So here, the people are very much, the people who work at the project have a lot of challenges. And then, for us, we always try to help bringing the right resource to them. And I think this seminar or this webinar will be a step towards that with a multidisciplinary approach and having the multiple specialities. So with this, I will just go ahead with the presentation. If my screen is visible, can I get a confirmation?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. So I will take you through a little bit of perspective of construction and then some of the specific issues. You all know the definition of occupational health. Since we are from ICO, I just bring with the WHO definition, physical, mental, and social well-being, because the social well-being is very, very important, and we have to actually focus on the social well-being, including the mental disorders and things like that. So it is not only illness, but a holistic thing. If you see the global scenario, we have actually the injury for which we are more and more focusing. That has very, minimum contribution in the global morbidity mortality figure. It is only 19%, but more and more is actually on the diseases, and that is, they actually need focus. That is why we have two doctors in the panel today. They will give us a lot of valuable guidance. And then one more area which is more very, very concerning and which is also of a matter which I am being pursuing for a long time is a working hours. Long working hours, particularly for the crew members, is very, very, I mean, have a very huge contribution to this total sigma of death. And then the other things like air pollution and things like that have the other, the numbers you can see. So there are certain things which we can actually control, and I think working hours, exposure to dust are out of that. So we'll listen to that more maybe in subsequent. Now, if you see, uh, coming to that area which I personally like to talk, and I think that we can do a lot about it, is that, if we increase the working hours, and these are all research-based data, the disease heart disease can increase by 17%, and if we it can cause the stroke by 35%. So that is what is the data. Now coming to the construction site, if we talk more about constructions, uh, occupation, we have areas of concern like occupational cancer, respiratory diseases, silicosis, asbestosis, musculoskeletal disorder. We listen from Dr. Priya maybe at the last session, and then noise-induced hearing loss, skin disease, heat stress, and mental health. I'm just talking about these areas which is mostly very common even in Indian scenario and also at some other parts of the world. Now there is some basic nature in the construction industry which contributes to making it 3D, is high risk nature. The jobs are by itself is risky. People have to go at elevated locations, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, 200 meter heights, chimneys, for example, 220 meter. So, I mean, and then it is very dynamic, like it goes up, the location changes, the workplace is not same, the next day it changes. Presence of subcontractor, sometimes subcontractor, because the specialized contractor for specific purpose bring people and then they give the job to someone, and then the management control actually comes down drastically when we have the presence of subcontractors, subcontractors. So then actually all the systems and procedures have the chance of getting diluted. Then skill, education, high rate of turnover. Skill is very important for safety as safety is concerned. And education is also important to understand the things. So there is, of course, deficiency in a country like ours where between 55 to 70 million people are working in construction. Turnover, yes, many people come to construction for certain months. They go for agriculture or some other occupation. And then that is how, they do not keep learning and staying in the profession. And many people may become tired and sick and they also leave. Low level of mechanization, I must say with a rider that mechanization have been increasing, but I think it has to go further. And the small construction companies are not able to afford mechanization, so it's still to a great level, it is still there. And then poor working and living conditions, since a large number of people are migrant, it is important for the companies to provide them good living conditions, and so many times it is not the so which it should be expected. And working condition as well, because as I mentioned, because of the dynamic nature of the job, and also sometimes cross-country nature of job like pipelines, transmission line tower, road jobs, the working conditions and living conditions remain a big challenge for the organizations and of course for the people. And that culminates to also the limited welfare facilities and extended working hours, as I mentioned, because all owners or everybody wants to get the project completed as fast as possible. So these are all, these are the, you can say, the background. Of course, there is a lot of things have happened as far as the global landscape is concerned. And then, the labor is not a commodity, and our government of India, I mean, our constitution also have provided a lot of provisions during in the directive principles, but those provisions in pen and paper and really getting effective, there is always a chance of a gap. So now it is a good thing that the safety and health has now become a part of uh, the fundamental principles and rights at work with the other four which was already there. So I think this is a very good step which has recently happened, and I am sure with this the respective signatories and the member states will take make legislation to ensure that the workplace is much safer. It is also a part of, you can say, the United Nations Sustainable Goals. And if you see, some of the sustainable goals are very much aligned to safety and health. For example, Goal 3, which talks about good health and well-being. Goal 8, talk about promotion of sustainable economic growth, productive employment, and decent work for all. So, I mean, there are other goals which we can always connect to the occupational health and safety. And now with the advent of ESG, where the companies are concerned, they have to report the score. It has become a business imperative now, and more focus will be on risk management, corporate governance, climate change, pollution, and labor standards. So I think this will really be very helpful from the corporate point of view, as a compulsion or as a requirement to improve the health and safety beyond the moral or ethical reasons. Now, what should be our strategy? Now, I would like to, take a loan from the idea from the Vision Zero, because it is really a transformational approach and a prevention strategy for a safe future without fatal or serious occupational diseases and accidents. So it is also integrating the safety, health, and well-being. So our approach will be to go for Vision Zero and promote the culture of prevention with the four important elements, like life is not negotiable, human beings are fallible, human beings have a right to safe and healthy work environment, which ILO also have recently mandated, and then tolerable limits are to be set for physical and mental endurance, including the working hours, load lifting, etc., etc. So this is a very scientific and reliable approach to take this forward, and that also substantiate the importance of a right planning, uh, to have the work done in the right manner, have the right management commitment, risk assessment and training, providing the right training, developing the competence of the people, stakeholders, and also having the right reward and motivational program. So the flow will go, and this is the approach which we think that may be the best one to have the hierarchy of control for every work, every activity we do, with the most effective being the elimination, substitution, followed by engineering control, which is very practical approach in construction, followed by two supportive control measures like administrative control and personal protective equipment, which all know. But then administrative control and PPE many a times do not provide the complete protection. So naturally, the higher level of protection is the most important option. That means going for elimination, substitution, and if not, then going for engineering control, supported by administrative control and PPE. And then, okay, there are specific cases where we have various types of challenges as we use a lot of chemical wood dust, diesel exhaust, particularly in confined spaces like tunnels and excavations, etc. And it is important that all these hazardous element or carcinogens has to be properly understood, use those use the risk control matrix, and then try to reduce the exposure, put the exhaust or guards and things like that, and then the last measure is to use the PPE. Now, my MSD, I will not speak much about it, but there is a large number of construction workers suffer from musculoskeletal disorder, and then we know that in India the load limit is 50 kg, which is very high. Of course, the spirit of the law is not that 50 kg has to be lifted, but that itself is a very high limit. So having the right, work practices, rearranging the workplace, etc., may be the option. Noise-induced hearing loss, people are highly exposed to various types of noise. So it is very important that we take it very seriously, and the associated multiple associated issues. So the maintenance of the equipment, having the right equipment for the right job, noise barriers, periodical maintenance, all these are coming mostly from the engineering aspect of managing the safety at site. Heat stress, yeah, extreme weathers, and it is very, very important that we have the right ventilation, the right check. People in some of the states in India, they eliminate the day working during the certain period of time, like it is happening in Middle East as well during 11 to 3. May I request everyone to mute? Someone has joined. Kindly mute. Rearranging work schedule. Mr. Shukumal Bosch. Mr. Shukumal Bosch, kindly mute. Okay. So, and things like that, like providing the shed areas for the daytime, wherever they can do assembly and other things, providing the right drinking water, good quality and cool water, and then providing protective clothing for outside work wherever possible. And stress and mental well-being, as I mentioned, many of them are migrant workers, so it is very important to have the connect with the families, and also the social uh, framework for proper a good working condition with and also having ensuring that no bullying, harassment, because people come from various places. So it is very important that there is a good environment maintained by the organizations to have a healthy peer relationship and relationship with the superiors. Uh, of course, the workload is another factor. And then if the people have to have a long working hours, then that also have become a very much, stress to the mental health. And it is important to have the right rest, have the right fitness, and also give them the holidays when it is required. Now, I'll speak a few points on the emerging technologies. Now, with the digital advancement to digital, we are trying to have smart wearables so that we have the health and activity data. We can also detect falls. We can also have ensured that hands-free, safe communication while operating equipment at height and at a very challenging condition, so that they can speak to their colleagues and get the support as they may be requiring while taking care of the work at various challenging places, including at height. So these are the things, including the smart helmet, fatigue detection. We have just started working with this. Micro slip prevention is another. Some of the companies have already implemented, particularly for the equipment operator, dozer operator, excavator operator, crane operator, and also proximity sensing. When material is being lifted, shifted, and moved, it will avoid the collision and entering the hazardous zone. So these all advantages of the technology we can use to improve the occupational health and safety, including the smart safety vest or harness, gas detection equipment, and also the access control equipment. So they're all are available, including the AI and VR technologies, image analytics and predictive analytics. If there is a person not wearing the PPE, the AI cameras can alert and send a mail. And now we are thinking of giving an on-spot alarm as well. So virtual reality training is another basket for the focus on immersive trainings. Exoskeleton, yes, would be of extreme help for heavy loads and options or occupations where, like welders, etc., they have to take very different posture for welding 6G, 4G, etc. And then that can be very, very challenging, and this can be of very much use. So at the end, I must mention that it is a very, very hazardous industry, and it is very important that we understand that the occupational illness, injuries, and fatalities uh, poses a serious challenge to us, and we need to work continuously to improve the scenario. And then, of course, it is the various studies shows that it is almost double chance. And musculoskeletal disorder is a big concern apart from the other issues which I have mentioned. So the focus will be ultimately to make the construction workplace also a safe and decent workplace. We're giving them the basic minimum safe and healthy situations or environments to work and bring productive as well. So with this, I thank you, and I hand over to Murli to take forward with the presentations. I'll take my presentation now. Thank you very much, and we will have a discussion at the end probably.
Thank you, Dr. Sen. Thank you for your informative presentation on the global context and as well as the realistic solutions for some of the occupational concerns we face in the construction industry. So, if the participants have any questions for the speakers, please do drop in the chat section. And if you have it now, you can unmute and you can ask it now. Otherwise, you can post it in the chat group and those will be taken up.
Murli, we can take it up at the later. So that will be better, I think, so that we can listen, and then if there is questions, we can take it, so that I think that will save the time.
Okay.
Except for Dr. Gogilan, because Dr. Gogilan has some other assignments. So for him, if there is any question, we can take it maybe after his presentation. And the rest of us, I think we can speak at the later. Right.
Yes.
Yeah, over to you. Yeah, you can introduce.
Yeah.
1 minute. Yeah.
Yeah, our next speaker is Dr. Gogilan Sevaratnam. He's currently the chair of ICOH Scientific Committee on Occupational Medicine and is currently working as the occupational physician in Malaysia. So, without further ado, I request Dr. Gogilan to take this forward.
Hi. Very good morning, afternoon, evening. It's about 9 p.m. here in Malaysia, Kuala Lumpur. Thanks, Dr. Krishna, for giving me this opportunity. Can you see the slides?
Yes, sir.
All right, thank you. I've spoken to many construction worker and occupational health prior to this, but this is my first webinar on the occupational health in construction industry. So I have to thank Dr. Krishna and the organizer for giving me an opportunity to speak to the players in this industry, in the construction industries. And as Dr. Krishna, he has clearly mentioned about the hazards in the construction industries, right? So if you see construction industries, they are one of the main major hazards are there in this industry. If you compare to other industries, construction industries, they face a lot of hazards like heat, noise, ergonomic, musculoskeletal, even physical injuries, fall, and all that. So with all this, so we want to put this in matter of next few an hour plus is going to be very difficult. So we were given tasks, like me, I was given task to speak about three main topics for this. That will be on the lung diseases, hearing impairment, and skin disorders. Right. So being an occupational physician, I'm not going to talk much on the treatment part or even on the management of the patients in the hospital, in the clinic. What we are very concerned is how are you going to manage this in their workplace related to these three conditions on their lung diseases, hearing impairment, and skin disorders, knowing that construction workers are very well exposed to this kind of construction, to this kind of hazards. And if you see construction workers, many of them are not from a very educational background, not very highly educated background, right? So it's going to be a bit difficult for them to understand the hazards that they're going to face in the workplace, right? For them, they have to come. It's like day-to-day wages. They come to work, they get a pay and all that. So the scenario here in Malaysia, even Malaysia, it's a developing country. So we do face the same problem like what Dr. Krishna has mentioned, where he faces in India. We have the same problem, and we do have a lot of migrant workers. They can be legal or illegal workers who have come here to work. And the scenario is worse for those illegal migrant workers, right? So they have come through back door, somehow they have entered the country and they work illegally, because at the end of the day, they just need the money, right? So they will forego, or they even neglect everything on the safety and health part of the which they face in the construction industry, right? So let's look into each one. I have some cases, which have some case report, which is very much relevant to the hazards they face. Let's look into the first case report. My slides and my thing is not going to be very much of with medical terms and all that. It's going to be very simple so that anybody can understand this, right? So we have the first case. This is a 63-year-old woman, right? A lady. Well, you see, they even work past 60 years old. They still continue. They've been working for many years when they were a teenager, and they continue working, right? And this 63 years old lady, a non-smoker, she has been working as a construction involving in mixing concrete, tiling, and all that. That means she's exposed to cement dust, right? So she exposed to cement dust for many years, more than 30 years she has been. So there was no history of exposure to any biomass, fuel, or even passive smoking, right? She doesn't smoke and not exposed to any other smokers. But she has been having this cough for past 20 years. You see, these workers, when you see these workers, they don't take this seriously when they start having cough and all that, right? They'll go probably to buy some medicine over the counter, right? They'll buy some cough mixture, they take medicine, and then they continue their work and all that. But she's been having this breathlessness, that means difficulty in breathing, on exertional and all that. So, but yet, she continued working because end of the day, she needs the money. She could be I'm not sure, she could be the breadwinner of the family. So she started work. She continued working even with all these symptoms of difficulty in breathing and cough and all that. But she came to a stage that she couldn't work anymore, right? She became very bad, severely ill, and she was admitted. When she was admitted, only then they did x-rays and further investigation on her, and she was diagnosed with emphysema. You see, mostly emphysema are diagnosed with those with habits of smoking and all that, but she was not a smoker. So on further investigation by the safety and health officer in the construction industry, with the help of an occupational physician, so they could relate the cement exposure was the one which caused the emphysema, because she was exposed to cement. And cement dust, if you see, they are very fine, right? And the powder has a diameter of range of very tiny, 0.05 to 5 micrometer. The tinier they are, the further they can go into the respiratory system. That means they can even go up to the lung, the tinier they are, right? This is so tiny, so it can go up to the lungs and cause problem. So, and most of these diseases, if you see, they are not short-term. They don't happen immediately. They'll take very long time. This is cumulative action or cumulative of the cement dust over the period of time, and that she developed. Although she had early signs and symptoms. So here, the problem is she had early signs and symptoms and did not seek treatment. I will also, another way is the employer did not do regular medical surveillance on her. Some of the first, we know that they have to do annual medical checkup or medical surveillance. So that was not done for whatever reason, I'm not very sure, was not done. So the thing was not detected until she became, it was almost, like the last stage of emphysema, only then it was detected. So this was one of the case on lung. So let's look into some of the data presented, right? So here, the Duke University Medical Center, they have presented that number of the prevalence of chest X-ray abnormalities, right? That means some abnormalities in the chest X-ray means some abnormalities in the respiratory system, the lung and all that, in certain selected construction occupation for the past since 1996 to 2016. So if you can see, the highest percentage of workers who were exposed to asbestos were about more than 30% of them had some kind of abnormality of X-rays. That means they have some kind of lung diseases. It can be anything. It could be cancer. It could be emphysema. It could be even COPD, pulmonary disorder, copulmonary, certain kind of lung diseases, right? Lung disorders. So next, you see plumber, sheet maker, boiler maker, electrician, truck driver, all these group of people who are involved in construction, right, found to have a high percentage of abnormalities in chest X-ray. This is just one of the study. There are many other studies which are there, which we can actually look for. So if you ask what are the work process in construction, which is very hazardous, if you look into that, almost all types of processes, work processes in a construction actually can lead to lung disorders, right? Like cutting, working with the stone, surface grinding, tunneling, crushing, demolition, clearing. You know, when they, after all that, they want to clear all the rubbles, all the stones and all that, even laying the floors, carpentry, and many more, not just limited to this, many more work processes in construction actually have high risk of developing lung disorder. So what are the common lung diseases among construction workers? Of course, we see earlier, emphysema is one of them, but one of the commonest would be asbestos-related diseases, asthma, COPD, lung cancer. Another one is silicosis, which is part of the pneumoconiosis. I have to admit here, even in Malaysia here, we don't have much information or notification about the diseases among construction workers. Sad to say, because these construction workers, right, they at one point for a couple of months or even probably a year or two, after that they move on. So it's very difficult to detect this group of people. It's only different for those in manufacturing because they're always there. Manufacturer, they're always there. In agriculture, they're always there, the same workplace. But construction workers, they keep on moving. So it's a bit difficult for us to detect or to do medical surveillance or even follow up this group of people, because when the moment they finish a project here, because most of them are contract workers, right? So the moment they finish one project, then they move on to some other projects, which probably very far away or different states and all that. So that will be a problem to follow them up, right? So we have that same problem with these construction workers. So we don't have much information. Like what Dr. Krishna has mentioned about the hierarchy of control, I think whatever said and done, we cannot run away from this hierarchy of control. Okay, we're very much fixed to this, and we hold this very close to us in the control measures as well. Of course, you know, elimination cannot be done in 99% of the cases, right? It's not easy to do elimination, although that's the best effective method. Substitution again is going to be difficult. So maybe we can try from the engineering control, right? Again, engineering control, we need help from engineers. We need a group of people to come up, to sit down together and to come up with a plan. How do you want to do some kind of control in a form of engineering, all right, to reduce the dust in the workplace, right, so that the people are not exposed, the workers are not exposed to the dust or any kind of hazards, to reduce the lung disorders. Administrative control, where we can have like rotation of job and all that. But then again, it's not as easy as what we think to rotate these people all the time, right? So if engineering control and administrative control do have some kind of challenges, I always feel PPE would be the best, because you can't do the rest, although PPE is the least effective method, but that would be the best at that point of time, where you have to ensure they wear the right PPE to reduce the lung disorders. Again, we don't have a fixed answer for all the problems where you want to face in a construction. So it goes by case by case. So, you know, you have to go workplace, you have to do the risk assessment, and we have to ensure the industry, in a construction industry, right, they have a policy in place so that we can help all these workers and all that. See, let me go to the next case, a case report number 2. Here, a 57 years old man, okay, he presented to a doctor because he had some kind of lesion on his scalp. Right, the lesion has been there for many years. Again, being a construction worker, they don't take things seriously about their health and all that, and they are very they don't come forward and complain about their health because they're afraid that they will be terminated, especially the migrant workers and all that, right? So they just keep it to themselves, and they will go to the nearest clinic, general practitioner, whoever it is, just go and take some medicine. And they hardly will agree to get admitted for further investigation. Like the first case, the second case, the same thing, right? So since he's in a scalp and he cannot notice, he couldn't notice that his barber has been seeing the changes, right? And then he started bleeding and all that. The dark pigmentation, right? And the lesion started growing bigger and bigger, right? And there's some changes and all that. So the moment there's some kind of changes, I started bleeding. Because of it started bleeding, he decided to go and see a doctor. And when the doctor saw, the doctor suspected something not good, some abnormality there, and he was referred to see a surgeon. Right? Again, this was not as easy for the worker, for them to go and see a doctor. You know, they'll be thinking the money and they have to spend all that. If they have gone to a government hospital, maybe everything will be taken care. But you know, the long waiting period and all that. So when the biopsy of the lesion was taken and sent to the lab, that they have detected it is a malignant melanoma. So that was actually a cancer of the, it's a kind of skin cancer, malignant melanoma. All right, now, can this be related to work? So when the risk assessment was done, when the case was reported to the safety and health team, right? Because most of the occupational diseases, when the moment they detect, they will notify. And when the team went and did investigation, got more history from this victim, from this patient, they realized that he has been in construction for more than 30 years. He was a laborer and is doing all kind of odd jobs and all that. Okay, working about 6 to sometimes even 7 days in a week for long duration. And some countries like Malaysia, certain parts of India, we're a hot country, okay, and we exposed to sun most of the time, right? So this guy hardly uses any PP. Anyway, it was not even recommended or was enforced by the employer, right, to cut costs and all that. Of course, you can't expect them to even use sunscreen lotion and all that, right? So he hardly used any of this. So he was exposed to direct sunlight, and that's where the malignant melanoma, the skin cancer, was detected for this worker. So when you look into these certain studies, and there are many studies being done, if you look into these studies and all that, there are some recent studies which is done in Canada. They found that the work-related skin cancer among construction workers in Canada, in Ontario, they expected it to double by next 30 years. So by now, they already have a lot of cases of skin cancer among construction workers. So they're expecting it to double by 2060, right? Now, with the global warming and all that, you know, there are a lot of sun. Even in European country, their summers are getting hotter and hotter. I think we know about that. They're getting hotter and hotter and all that. So they're expecting more cases of skin cancer among construction workers, because construction workers, they are directly exposed to the sun and all that. So a study in Scotland, again, another developed Western country in Scotland, they found that half of the outdoor workers on construction sites, they are exposed to UV, who were exposed to UV ray, they develop skin cancer as well, okay? More than half of the workers. In Germany, again, skin cancer was reported as #1 occupational disease in construction in 2020. If you're going to ask, is this the same scenario here in Malaysia? It's going to be difficult for me to answer this because we don't have a proper information. We don't have a proper notification. So that part we are lacking here, right? We do get 1 or 2 cases, but I think that has been severely underreported by the person who actually gave the treatment, or even by the employer. They hardly report because they were very, they'll be worried about the consequences of enforcement officers to go in, you know, and will be penalized and all that. So they don't report these cases. And the moment the workers are ill or they have this kind of condition, What they'll do, they will give them some kind of money and they will be sent off. So that is the, I would say, a drawback where we face here, right? So I'm not sure in other developed country, but here this will be one of the problems, especially among the migrant workers. Even in the US, they have detected that construction workers are one of the highest group of people who will be treated for the skin cancer. Like, let's look into what are the common irritants, right? So all the today's participants from the construction industry, I think you are very well aware that there are a lot of irritants and allergens in the construction, like cement. Even water can be an irritant, regular hand washing, some kind of hand cleaners, solvent, dust, sawdust, fiberglass, glue, gum, sealant, tar, many more. Even the heat and sweat, right? They work in hot sun. Their own sweat can cause irritant to them, so which can cause a lot of skin related disorders and all that. Even friction from using machineries.
Dr.
These are
Govilan, sorry
besides.
to interrupt you. Last 3 minutes, 3 more minutes.
Yeah, the besides the skin cancer, the other common skin disorders for construction workers will be frictional callosities, ulcers, and contact dermatitis. I think this is quite common among construction workers. So, what will be the actionable solution? Right. So, of course, when you use hierarchy of control, right? But if you go deeper a bit, zoom into this, I think for those with skin disorders, I think we can advise them, right? Advise them to have frequent changing of clothes. Okay, remove the soiled clothes. Do not take back home the soiled clothes. Try to do the on-site laundry and all that. It's going to take a bit of time. It's not going to be very easy, but I think we should start doing all this to reduce all these skin disorders among the construction workers. Regular using hand creams and all that, or and also PPE like suitable glove, those who work with waterproof and all that. I think we have to start somewhere, right? Especially it should come from the employer to slowly to enforce this kind of action to reduce the skin cancer. Let me go to the last case for today's presentation, of my presentation today. A 53-year-old Mr. M. Mr. M has been having some kind of deafness. He did not realize until his family said, "Hey, you guys, you have been turning your TV too loudly and all that." Right? And he started having tinnitus. Tinnitus is a ringing kind of sensation. When you're in a quiet environment, you'll feel something like ringing sensation. That shows that you're already developing some kind of hearing disorder, right? So when you investigate on his workplace, he has worked as a general foreman in a construction for 31 years. So what does he do? He worked in loud manual equipment, in drills, rollers. I mean, every place where it was a very high noise, which is more than 85 decibel. Again, construction, and he has been exposed to loud noise and all that. That's where he started having this damage. And we see Mr. Ham said that before this, he was not given any PPE, nothing. Right? Only recently he started wearing and all that. By the time we know that hearing is reversible. That means the moment you have damage, it will never recover. It will never go back normal. So there's some data here on CDC NIOSH on noise, where it says 3 out of 4 construction workers are exposed to hazardous noise at the workplace and all that, right? Not only that, hearing is very common among the construction workers. And who are the construction workers? Those who work in the building construction, highway, bridge, in heavy and civil engineering. They are one of the highest rate of having noise-induced hearing loss. Right, there's some data here, CDC NIOSH, where the prevalence means all the old and new cases were detected among 1.8 workers. They detected when you see the construction workers are having a higher incident of noise disorder. That goes same to the incident reported for the 560, 100,000 workers and all that. Right, so this will be my last slide. What can we do for the noise? I think Dr. Krishna has mentioned that we have to invest to more on engineering control, invest in quieter machineries, right, so that it can reduce the noise and all that. I think there are a lot of new technology are coming. Of course, it's going to be cost a bit, but if you see long term, it's going to reduce a lot of compensation, a lot of payment, insurance, and all that. right? So you need to regulate the workplace noise level, reduce the noise exposure by scheduling noisier job when there are few workers and all that. And of course, wearing a good protection, a proper ear muff and ear plug in the workplace. That means we have to tell them the moment you enter the construction area, even if you're not going to operate the machine, start wearing until you come out, right? So that will be a good rule and all that, right? So thank you very much. So that was my last slide. This picture, when I was doing this presentation, I saw this picture in my own office, and that was the construction worker doing this. He's an illegal. I don't know whether he's illegal or legal immigrant. I got a shock when he was just in front of my eyes. So I found him without any PPE, and that was his what you call working attitude. With that, thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Gogilan, on your informative session on the effects of these various exposure to the construction material, the construction dust, and the hazards usually we face in the construction project sites. As you will be leaving us now, I just want to request the participants if they have any queries, they can unmute and raise their questions to Dr. Gogilan.
And if anything comes later also, we can send it to him by
Yes,
email.
please. Sure.
And he will definitely be kind to respond to that.
I'm actually attending another program here. I know it's late night. We're doing a program. Not a problem. I still can read. I'll be still around, and I can probably I'll just read in the chat if they have any questions.
One or two questions are coming, sir, actually.
Sure. Please.
Murli, can you read that? It will be better.
Yes,
Master.
actually, there was a question from one of our participants. It is that what are the common symptoms there to identify whether he or she has been infected by these occupational diseases other than these medical tests for the construction workmen?
Right. If you see common symptoms, well, that depends what kind of disease, right? Like if skin, then you're going to have some kind of rashes and all that. Okay, now generally before they even go to that stage, occupational health is more on prevention. We don't deal with treatment. We don't want to wait until they fall ill. So occupational diseases are preventable diseases. That we have to understand. So you want to prevent this. So what type of prevention? We have primary prevention, secondary prevention, tertiary prevention. Now let's go into the primary prevention. Before they even fall ill, we have to create awareness for them. So what I usually tell to the safety officer or doctors at the ground that, please talk to the workers all the time. Tell them the moment you have any problem, if you see any kind of small, even tiny abnormality, please approach the doctors, please seek help. If you don't see a doctor, please even talk to your middle managers, your supervisors, your direct manager. Just tell them that you have this problem, right? So we don't wait until they have these common symptoms, because symptoms can be depends on the diseases they're going to have. So it's good to create awareness in the beginning itself. I think that will be my suggestion.
Actually, I think there is in continuation to it, there is one more question. Are there any early diagnostic biomarkers available for this?
That depends what kind of disease, because now earlier I spoke about three common disease on noise, skin, and lung. Well, biomarkers usually they'll come a bit later. You want to create awareness or even do a medical surveillance. I mean, annual medical surveillance. And from there, it goes to the biomarkers on the biological monitoring. That will be a later part, right? So the common things what we do here will be lung function tests or annual screening, lung function test, on the audiometry test for noise related disorders and all that. So these are the common things that we do. Again, we cannot do a lot of detailed part of it because, again, cost for the industries. So we want to do as practical as possible for the industries and all that. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Gogilan, for wonderful, presentation in a short time. I know it is quite late in the evening. Any other questions, I will forward it to you, and
Sure,
maybe you
sure.
can
Thank you
share
very much, Dr.
the
Krishna.
response. And
Thanks for the
thank you
for
for
the
your time, Jen. Thank you very much. We will connect again. Yeah, thank you.
Sure, sure.
Thank you. So we'll move to the next one, Murli. Yeah.
Yeah, our next speaker is Dr. Monalisha Sahu. She is currently a medical teacher and researcher with more than 12 years of public health experience. And she is currently serving as associate professor and head of Department of Occupational Health at All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health under Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, Government of India. And she is involved in teaching, training, and research activities of occupational health for medical postgraduates for courses like community medicine, epidemiology, and etc. And she's also presently guiding two MD thesis projects as well as 13 short projects as well. She is leading and involved in funded research projects in occupational and environmental health uh, programs as well as other projects were focusing on reducing the carbon footprints as well. She has served as examiner for the associate fellow in industrial hygiene courses and other related courses as well. And she's a master trainer for the disaster preparedness under CBPHEM and has successfully conducted training programs for the northeastern states in collaboration with the NIHFW. And she's also a national trainer for the research methodology and the operational research. And with this, I request Dr. Mona Lisa Sahu to take this forward.
Thank you, Murli. So first of all, I would like to thank Dr. Sivaratnam for inviting me to this session. I'm really thankful to be part of this important session for construction industry workers. And today I will be discussing, are my slides visible?
Yes, visible.
Yes, visible.
So today I will be discussing, as my previous speakers, they very deliberately and very interestingly, they have discussed some of the hazards. I will be moving ahead with the heat hazards, the other physical hazards which are being faced by construction workers, that is heat hazard, vibration hazards, and slip, trips and fall in construction workers. So we, as Dr. Sen already discussed, ki construction sites are triple D. So they are inherently dangerous environments and they pose various hazards and risks to workers' health and safety. Now this hazards multiplies in a setting like India, which is a developing country in which a major part, sometimes as high as 90% of our workers, they come from unorganized sectors. And similarly in construction workers also, they come from poor setting where they are exposed to poor environmental conditions and they are exposed to violations and their vulnerabilities are exploited. So as we already know, there are many migrant construction workers which come to work for a fixed time duration and then they go to some other site and they work over there. And these construction workers in India specifically, if you will see, the weather and especially the summers are getting offensive every day. So now with the concept of the climate change and as the mean average temperature is increasing, the situation is deteriorating each and every day. In such scenario, the construction workers, they often work outdoors and during the hottest times, and they also worked in non-climate controlled spaces where there are no air conditions, the ventilation is also not there, sometimes there is humidity, and sometimes they are exposed to heat sources also, which is part of the work process itself, like welding and like asphalt containing roofing kettles or paving machines. So these are also heat generating machineries, and because of that they are further exposed to the heat sources. So due to exposure of these various heat sources as well as the environmental heat, it is very difficult to maintain the body temperature within the normal limits. And a major chunk is also played by the air temperature, humidity, and the clothing they are wearing, and the hydration, whether they are drinking water regularly or not. So all these will lead to heat stress and heat strain. So what is heat stress? So whenever a worker is exposed to heat from environmental factor or physical activity or due to
Dr.
the
Mona, Dr. Sahu, sorry to disturb, your slides were not changing.
okay. So is it changing now?
No, no, no.
Okay, then I think I will put it in the non-presentation mode. Is it fine now?
Yeah, now we are in sixth slide. Yeah.
Yes, yes. So these all things, the physical activity, environmental factors, and clothing, it will result in heat stress, and then there will be a physiological response of the body to combat this heat stress. And when there is this unrelieved heat strain, so that will result into heat related illnesses. Now heat related illnesses have a spectrum, and we have seen from our previous studies that in Indian workers, the construction workers suffer from heat related illness. From 10 to 20% of the construction worker, they are suffering from the heat related illnesses, and mostly in the summer months. uh, of course, because more heat is environmental heat is there, and during monsoon also, because there is humidity factor is also involved. So then there is the spectrum ranges from heat rash to as serious as heat stroke. So how to prevent this, how to protect the construction workers from these kind of heat stress? So uh, to prevent, we have to follow these 4 rules, that the workers, they must take time to acclimatize. Now how they can acclimatize? So they have to follow the rule of 20. So how to follow the rule of 20? That they have to gradually increase their exposure to heat, and in the first week only 20% of the time, and then the next week they can increase 20% more, and in this manner slowly their body will acclimatize to the surroundings. Then as per OSHA and NIOSH guidelines, they must follow the water, rest, and shade practice. This practice may seem a very simple approach, that okay, they have to take water, rest, and shade, but it is very difficult for them because of continuous hard work to remember that okay, it is time now, we have to take rest, and we should go to shade. And because of poor environmental conditions as well as poor supervisory, and as I told you that most of the construction workers, they belong to unorganized sector in our country. So there are not there are in many sites the labor laws and rules are not enforced, and so they do not get proper rest, and they are also overworking. So what is advisable, that every 15 to 20 minutes they drink water, whether they are thirsty or not. Even before the thirst sets in, they must drink water, at least 1 cup of water, 1 small cup of water, and they should take rest in shade, in a more uh, heat friendly place, where maybe in a air conditioned area, or if not available, then at least in the shade, where their exposure to the extreme heat is avoided. And then they should use hats and light colored clothing, appropriate clothing, so that their body temperature is cooled, sweating is proper, and the cooling of body is happening. And then there has to be a buddy system, where each one look out for the other person, and in that manner, if something is happening to one person, then the other person can inform, and the whole in that whole scenario, the in that setup, people are prepared for emergencies, that if somebody is suffering from heat exhaustion, or if somebody goes into heat stroke, then the person is immediately taken for the medical response, and the person is helped in cooling off, and then the necessary medical first aid and then definitive care can be given. So this is the very important part, and we have to remember that heat may also kill people. Not doesn't take heat very often very seriously, so we have to remember that heat may kill, and then we must get help immediately. So now coming to the second part of my presentation, that is vibration in construction industry. So vibration is also a very important hazard, very important health hazard in construction industry, and especially the common machineries and tools like concrete breakers, jackhammers, hammer drills, sanders, grinders, chainsaws. So these are the kind of equipments and tools which will expose a worker to continuous source of vibration. Now, the vibration exposure, it can also be of two types. One is just hand and arm vibration while drilling. If the person is getting vibrations exposure in only most of the time and in severity in hands and arms. And the second is when the whole body is exposed to high ranges of vibration. So what happens if there is only hand and arms exposed? So there are chances of carpal tunnel syndrome and hand arm vibration syndrome. So in carpal tunnel syndrome, somehow the median nerve is displaced and compressed. So the thumb, index finger, middle finger, and half of the other finger, it gets affected. First there is numbness and then there is pain, and because of it the person is not able to even use his grip properly. And similarly in hand arm vibration syndrome, uh, firstly at initial stages there will be no symptoms, then there will be pricky sensations, and when the nerves are lost, the nerves are permanently damaged, so there will be sensation will not be there, and then overall when the vascular and nervous system damage is there, in severe cases for long duration, then even uh, gangrene kind of situation may happen. So this was for only hand and arm vibration exposure. If the whole body is exposed to vibration, then it will affect multiple parts of the body and even the internal organs. So then the ranges of symptoms may vary from fatigue and tiredness to muscle pain, irritation, difficulty in sleeping, headaches, and irritability. And later on, it will lead to many or other NCDs. There can be heart diseases, and eventually it can be damaging to the internal organs. So what are the solutions? So we must practice the vibration safety. So the equipments, they are to be made safe. There are anti-vibration mounts which are available. There are rubber dumpers which are available. So these safety tools, they should be utilized in this construction setting, and the person who is exposed to such kind of vibrations, he or she also must change positions often and take breaks when working for long periods. Also, the space should be increased. There should be lockout periods, and the person who is exposed, he also must wear some form of PPEs like vibration damper sleeves or anti-vibration gloves and boots. So this was all about vibration. Now coming to the third part of my presentation, that is slips, trips, and falls. So we all have slipped and tripped in our lives, but what are the major causes of slips, trips, and falls in construction industries? Because in construction industry, the falls, they are leading causes of death and fatalities. So it has been seen in studies that 54% is because of human factors, and 25% is due to surface errors. It can be slippery or wet surface. 16% is because of housekeeping issues, and 1% is because of poor lighting. So what are the key aspects of slips and trips? So whenever there is uneven surface, whenever there is wet or slippery surfaces, Whenever there is obstacle, there is a training cable looming, or there is a change in level, or some obstruction is placed in the pathway. So it has been seen in India that in monsoon season, this the incidences of slips and trips, they multiply 2 to 3 times, then the prevalence is doubled or tripled because of wet or slippery surfaces itself. Now, the other thing is, apart from slip and trips, there are falls and accidents. So frequency of falls from height also is very high among Indian construction workers. It is estimated to be between 20 to 30%. And it is mostly because of, in studies it has been seen at, because the Indian construction workers, they are working at heights without adequate safety equipment. There is inattention, there is fatigue, and there is poor working conditions. So how to prevent fall? So here we have to follow the hierarchy of control. Now, because it has been already being explained by my fellow speakers, so I am skipping it here, and especially in the context of fall protection, how we are going to follow hierarchy of fall protection. First and foremost is, if it is possible, just eliminate the hazard. It is the preferred solution, that if we can just eliminate the exposure to fall hazard. If it is not possible to eliminate, then we have to practice passive fall protection, that we can place engineering, we can use engineering methods, we can put physical barriers, guardrails around unprotected edges. And then even if it is not possible, then or in addition to it, we can have fall restraint system. So that will restrict the mobility of the person, and it will restrict it from going to the dangerous area. The next stages, which is not much preferred, is, but it has to be practiced when other control measures are not possible, that is using PPE, body harness system, and fall arrest system. And the last is the administrative control. So for fall protection, the PPE are to be appropriately wore by the construction workers, like the hat, safety glasses, steel-toed boots, and fall protection gear must be there. So how to stop this, how to stop or prevent falling and also slips and trips? So first of all, at the start of the day, we must inspect the work site, like inspecting all the machines, whether the ladder is at the place where the machine is working properly, where the machine is at the place, whether the protective equipment are there and they are in proper shape, and especially if a worker is going to work in height, so is he taking the personal protective equipment, and whether he is trained and he knows how to use it. So then provide guardrails. If there is an elevated or open-sided platform, a floor or a runway, then whether guardrails are there or not, then looking into it, and then providing the guardrails, providing personal protective equipment, and cleaning up the site at the end, to cleaning up all the unnecessary debris, so that unexpected accidents are prevented. And it is very important to train employee about the fall protection. So the measures we can take for construction fall protection is fall arrest, positioning, suspension, and retrieval. So fall arrest, as we discussed, it is not preferred. Fall restraint is preferred. In fall arrest, the construction worker must
Dr.
wear.
Sahu, sorry to interrupt. Last 2 minutes.
Okay, so first line of defense is a body safety harness, then lanyards which will connect to the anchor point, so that even if the person fall, the fall can be arrested. And the positioning, like if the person is working in a on a ladder, then a harness is there while performing work, so the fall can be avoided. And then there must be a written retrieval plan to prevent suspension trauma. And suspension trauma sometimes lead to much of injury, and even when the fall is arrested, still they may suffer major trauma. So we need to reduce the suspension trauma, and for that we need to train the workers to how to and also we need to train them about deployment and proper usage of suspension trauma. So my last slide, that taking all the proper measures like checking the site, checking the whole site for possible health hazards, then coming up with a proper written prevention system, and then providing PPE will help in prevention of all these occupational hazards. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Saul. I think, yeah, we will have the questions, I think, at the end, and Murli, you can take forward. Yeah, we will have the questions at the end. Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for a very elaborate presentation. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, our next speaker is Dr. Prideshni Dasgupta. She's currently associate professor at Southeastern Louisiana University, USA. So I request take this forward. Dr. Monalisa Sahu, you can stop sharing your screen. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, over to you, Dr. Pidesh.
Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Is my slide visible?
Yes.
Okay. Good morning in the US, and I know it's good evening in India. Hello, everyone. Today, I am going to present different measures, types of interventions or techniques of interventions that we can use in construction sector to reduce the exposures to different ergonomic hazards, injuries. Now, I basically came back from India recently, and I was observing different construction techniques there. To me, we need to do a lot more than we are doing right now to reduce some exposures to very frequent injuries, not only sleep, trip and fall in construction, as Dr. K. Ensign has mentioned, the 3D. I always say that it's a very dynamic industry, and it's ongoing, it's going forward with a lots of hazards, sometimes noticed, sometimes they are not noticed. These are some of the construction sites in India that I have observed. In the first site, as you can see, that they are basically doing, they are at the very beginning stage, almost the pile driving stage. One worker here is sitting and welding, doesn't have any welding mask, doesn't have any type of personal protective equipment also, which is extremely needed. The welding fume has got a huge issue. If you inhale the welding fume, of course you are going to get exposed to the negative outcomes like welding fume fever. It's a ongoing chronic disease people sometimes have. Not only the worker, but he is exposing other people who are working in the area. The second picture, we can see that the scaffold has been used with the use of bamboo sticks, and none of the workers are wearing any type of personal protective equipments. So these are two examples of hazardous conditions that I have seen. I will come back to that later. But before going into that section, I just wanted to show you an example that how interventions can be let's say how we have to come up with intervention ideas and implement them in construction. It's not an easy thing. Construction is very dynamic. Sometimes they are extremely rigid. They have set time, they have set number of people, and honestly, construction workers do not want us to just appear there and say that, hey, you are doing it in a very unergonomic way, so let's do the safe way. They do not want to hear that phrases from us. This is an example of how heavy materials are handled in the US. As you can see that these workers are basically installing the side wall and the upper wall in a construction. This was a commercial residential construction site. No, this was purely a commercial site. Sorry, this was a purely commercial site in Greater Boston area in the US. You can see that this dimension of this panels, we call it sometimes drywall panel, sometimes it is just called a sheet panel or ceiling panel. The ceiling panels, if they are 4 feet by 8 feet, they will weigh 70 pounds. If they are 4 feet by 12 feet, they will weigh 105 pounds. The thickness, it's 5 by 8 inches. It is gypsum board. It's very, very weird and awkward to hold it even. I tried to do a participant observation. I could not do it. I could not move an inch the panels. It was so heavy, so bulky, so weird. There is no handle. You are just gripping it. These workers, they typically be on ladders. Both of them will be on ladders. Both of them will raise the ladder. So they will just climb up the ladders, and both of them are holding the panels in their hand. At the end, one of them is holding with both arms stretched, and the other worker is using a screw gun which shoots the nails into the panels to affix them permanently to that position. Now, whatever I have said here is going around as a cycle. So this particular task is a cyclic. Needed from the time they are grabbing the panel, bringing it to the site, to the place where they are going to affix it permanently, going up, climbing up on the ladder, holding it, affixing it. How many times they use the screw gun? Total 64 times. So if there are two workers, minimum time they will shoot the nails is for 32 times. How many panels they do every day? It varies. Sometimes I have seen that they do the ceiling and the side wall alternatively. That means they will do the ceiling for 3 hours, then break, then they will do the side wall, regardless of whether it is ceiling or whether it is the side wall. They will be holding the panel manually. So a lot of manual handling task is being done there. I sometimes try to say the whole situation is almost like the third picture. They are balancing their postures on the narrow rung of the ladder. You can see this picture here. I cannot say that the whole part of their feet is being supported by the rung of the ladder. So it's a balancing issue on their lower bottom of the body and the upper part of the body. Moving forward, I would like to tell you that I observed a total of 18 rival installers for a span of 2.5 years. I observed them for 5 hours every day, 3 times a week, and I collected my data in path methodology, which is every minute I entered how was their trunk posture, how was their arms posture, what was their particular activity, what was the tool they were using, what was the weight of the load they were holding or handling. So I basically had almost 39,000 lines of data after at the end of 2.5 years. Not all of them were regarding rival panel installers. I had seen other stuffs also like floor coverers, pile drivers, the form workers. This particular research is about the ceiling installers. Now, as I have mentioned, that construction basically is a non-repetitive task activity in nature, but rival panel installation, more or less, it had a cyclical way. How I have collected my data and why I have collected my data. Because I was going forward with the idea that I would implement an assistive device for them, I tried to find out or to figure out that what is the baseline level of their load handling, like how many load they are handling for each and every task. So I tried to separate my tasks from fitting the panel, installing the task, or just plain simple housekeeping task. And I did it for load handling, for seeing the trunk postures, and also for the arm postures. So I found out that most of the weird arm postures, which is both arms when they are greater than 60 degree, it happens while they are fitting the panel. Most of the weird trunk postures, which is bent and flexed, or let's say the severe flexion and the extension, it happens when they are installing the starts. With all this data in my hand, I tried to figure out that what is their main concern. This was the data that I was having as an evidence from my pilot study, from the literature, and I wanted to go forward with a solution. I did not mention them about the word hazard. I just said that this is a concern for tribal panel installation process, that you have some of this heavy manual handling type of activities. What is your idea about that? Anonymously, there was 90% of the panel installers, around 5 to 6 construction sites, who said that we need to change our jobs after 5 to 6 years because we have terrible back issues, and all those back issues are regarding either spinal dislocation or spinal injury, or sometimes we need to go through surgery, and this is regarding the heavy weight of the panel that we are bearing every day. With that in mind, I ended up in having a very productive conversation, and all these conversations happened in a participatory way. So it was not only me who was giving them the ideas. I kept the whole discussion open from their standpoint also. So they were absolutely encouraged to give their ideas of not changing, of adding any modification to it, which will make them comfortable, and they think that it is a sustainable idea. There were several ideas discussed. Many of them could not be, carried out because this it was not sustainable after some time, or it was too expensive, or it was going to change the whole process so much. They did not like it. Of course, the foremen would not like it. So at the end of a 2 month participatory discussion process, where I indulged in discussing with them at least once per week, they came up with an idea. They told me that some of the electrical workers, that means workers who are installing the electricity, is using electrically operated lift, which you can see here, the orange one. And the way they do it is they will be on that lift, the electrically operated lift is bringing them to the top, and they are fitting their stuff. I asked them how it would help in rival panel installation. One of the workers said that in one of the previous sites, they had an issue with one of the rooms. They used this electrically operated lift to install the panel to the ceiling, so they did not need to use the ladder at all. And one of the workers would stand on the floor, will hold the panel in their hand, and would support the ceiling. I have several videos on it. I cannot show it here because it will be lengthy, but as you can see that the person who is standing on the floor is holding the scrap piece of panel, which is a 14-inch by the length of the panel, almost 16 pounds in weight. This piece is called the dead man. They said me that once we are in raising the panel and going up to the ceiling, none of us are basically holding it and raising it. At the end, when it reaches the ceiling, one of us who is in the floor will hold it. I said perfect. Do you think that this will solve your hazards or exposure to the ergonomic issues? They said yes, it will. Some of it will be gone. I said, okay, let's catch up doing you that, and let's take some data on that. So at the end of their process, I compared their weight handling with the one they were doing on the ladder. What I found here is most of their light handling, which is 0 to 5 pounds, or medium handling, which is 15 to 50 pound, reduced. There was absence of heavy load handling because, of course, at the end of the day, none of them are holding the panel with their hand. One of them is holding with the deadman piece. However, to me, it did not satisfy me completely because still somebody needs to be on the floor and continuously have to give an upward force. And if you just think of the panel's weight, if it's a 70-pound panel, if you you divide it by two, 5 pounds each one is holding, and this panel, this scrap piece, if it is 14 pounds, then 35 plus 14, that means 49 pounds. In any case, the person is dealing with 49 pounds at any point. Then what's the point? Because 50 pound is the cutoff limit for heavy load handling. So I tried to find out more solutions. I mean, I absolutely I agree that most of their exposure to the ergonomic issues were gone, but it was not obliterated. Now I went to another site. They were extremely interested in going forward with my idea of having an implementation. So what I did is I took Deadman as a prototype and I tried to add more features to it. I found some window washer, some poles, which is capable of holding 160 pounds. I added different pieces on the top. I tried to talk with the workers again in the site in a participatory manner. I said that I am going to introduce something which has an feature of easy length change. You just press a button, it will change its length. It's not too heavy. This tool can be kept anywhere in the site. It will support your ceiling up to 160 pounds of panel, and the highest load of the panel is 110 pounds. Well, they were pretty much eager to use it. And this is how they have used it. You can see that they were keeping the pole handy near to their site where they are working. And as soon as they are on the ladder and they have raised it, they just place the panel just beneath the ceiling and they can remove their hand. So what I found in my result this time comparing with the baseline was pretty much interesting. The arm postures absolutely improved. You can see that the red one is at the baseline, the green one is at the intervention period. There was a huge decrease in the posture where both arms are greater than 60 degree. There was a little bit increase in one arm greater than 60-degree posture. I know that is because when they are taking down one of their hands, of course, they are getting more time to install it. And you know what? Eventually, 20% more panels were installed for the next 5 to 6 months, remaining 5 to 6 months on this site. So their productivity actually increased. Also, their amount of heavy load handling also decreased at the intervention phase. I did some 3D SSPP, which is three-dimensional static strength prediction program. I did that analysis and I found that there was a significant level of decrease for low back's compressive force at the intervention level. There was also a significant decrease in the right shoulder moment. Then it was the left shoulder moment, decrease. The shear force also decreased, but it was not significant. We did return on investment calculation also, and of course we found a little bit improvement in while they were using the pole tool or the hangers helper, as we have named it, regarding the injury costs. Now, I was fortunate enough when I was in India, Calcutta, to visit some of the sites. I cannot name which company it is, but I can only tell you that this can be a role model site for many other sites in India, especially in West Bengal, because they are using the hard hat, they are using the jackets, they are using toe boots, steel toe boots, and I have seen many other very good practices that the site is adopting. I
Dr.
had
Dakgupta, sorry to interrupt you last 2 minutes.
handling of the load is extremely high while they are mixing the cement. The posture is very poor. No use of personal productive equipments. So I had a chance to talk to that site, anonymous site, and we have some ideas. Maybe we will go forward with that in the future. I do not have anything concrete, but it was just a preliminary discussion. I can also show you that how this worker was doing extreme trunk bent. I would say it was a twist of the trunk at the end of the ladder, and the ladder did not look very particularly stable to me. So with this idea that how we can go forward with implementing interventions in a participatory manner, maybe we can do that something in India in the future. Right now I am very much involved in another research in construction where I'm trying to find out why the workers are indulging into opioids rather than trying to remove their hazards. So I had 3 sites with a total number of 75 workers. I had physical therapy sessions. So I basically got physical therapists into the site. This was a grant with SWCOEH that I got last year. So you can see that the physical therapist here is giving them ideas that what are the good postures, how do you stretch, how do you do McKinsey stretches, and etc. It is a preventative thing, and how do you reduce the chances of getting hurt in the work. Will that increase your chances of adopting this rather than going with the painkillers? So I'm still, this research is going on. So I found out that 30% of the workers said that yes, we will do the physical therapy say exercises that are shown to us, but they did not say me yet. They did not answer the question, or there was not a very significant change that whether they will go with the painkillers as well. So, anyways, this is ongoing in US, and I will end my presentation with the note that I'm very much eager to implement many ergonomic interventions in Indian construction site, and I'm open for your questions now.
Uh, Thank you, Dr. Dasgupta, for your informative session on this ergonomic issues that we face in the construction industry. There is one in the chat. There is one question. I think it is addressed to Dr. Mona Lisa. Uh, the question is that what would be the immediate first aid measures that we can offer in case of heat stroke? Dr. Mona Lisa?
Yes. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Yes, thank you for the question. So first we have to understand what happens in heat stroke. So actually in the heat stroke, the core body temperature rises to 40 degrees Celsius, right? And the body is not able to cope up with it because all the proteins, they are being denatured. So as a passerby, the first thing, because this whole thing cannot be managed by first aid only. So for first thing which has to be done is to dial 108. That is the emergency response system in India, the integrated emergency response system. And by the time the emergency help is reaching to you, you have to take the person to a cool and shady place, and you have to ensure that proper ventilation is there. Mist fans, if are available, then place it near to them so that evaporation is fast. And then maintaining the dignity of the patient, undress him. The unnecessary amount of clothing has to be removed, but please maintain dignity of the patient. And then cold tepid sponging, uh, preferably if ice cubes are available, then with ice cubes, sponging of the patient, specifically in head, axillary and groin area. And then the person can be transferred to the facility as soon as possible, where if fluid replacement will be done and rest of the tests will be done, and treatment will be provided accordingly with the help of cold saline. Yes, so I think it's clear now.
Yes. Sir, you're muted.
Yeah. Thank you. Is there any other question to any of the panelists? We are just I think on time, maybe 6-7 minutes ahead, 5 minutes ahead. So if there is any question, I actually wanted to ask a question to Dr. Priyadarshini, because you see in the ergonomics part, if you see the load which we are carrying, the limit, the governmental limit is 50 kg and 55 kg. And what is the your recommendation, and what is the practice in US and elsewhere in the developed part of the world? What is the limitation they set, and what is the recommended load for a normal, I mean, person with an Indian anthropometric average size?
Very good question, Dr. Sen, because I was wondering that when you first said that 50 kg is the upper limit for in Indian construction site, because OWS method and NIOSH both have recommended that 50 pounds, which is 23 kg. If you think of the handling baggagers, the airplane baggage handling, those workers are why it is 50 pounds, 23 kgs, because that's the maximum limit that somebody is pulling. Now, I think I have no idea why this was 50 kg in India, but in the United States, we follow the practice of 50 pounds, which is categorized at the high amount of load handling. Between 15 and 50, it is medium. Less than 15, 5 to 15, it is light. 0 to 5, it is very light. So this is the categorization that we use in the United States, and that is how we have implemented. That's why I said that when the dead man piece was being used, still this worker is holding a 14 pounds scrap piece and taking care of 35 pounds on the top. That means 35 plus 15 is 14 is almost 49, almost going to the heavy category. And that's why I did not get satisfied with it. I always thought that we can improve it even more. Does that answer
Yeah.
your question?
Yeah, fully. Only thing, you can share a chart or something like that. What is followed in US, we can circulate there at least for
Okay.
the awareness in the industry in our next Indian Chamber of Commerce meeting. Thank you very
Sure.
much. I think there are some
Thanks.
questions, I think, following which maybe Professor Sahu can address. I can see the chat box. Immediate first aid in case of burn injury, I think it must be to address to you, Dr. Sahu.
Yes. So am I audible?
Yeah, you are.
So it is so for burn injury, like it is a little bit out of purview for this session, but still I will explain that it will totally depend upon what type of burn and what is the category of burn, whether it is first degree burn, second degree burn. So first and foremost, the person who is with the victim has to see that there is no further injury which is happening, no further to stop the burn injury. And then the second thing which is to be done, that please inform the again 108, so that an equipped ambulance reaches to you first, because depending upon the grade of burns, the management is totally different, and it has to be done in specialized burn units only. Because if it is extensive burn, more than 40% burn, then it becomes very difficult for a doctor or a surgeon, and they will require grafts. And uh, first of all, the water which is depleted from the body, and the patient may land up in low blood pressure and shock, so that has to be stopped. So that will be done by fluid will be given to that person, and then it will be seen that infections are to be avoided. So burn has got very specific protocols. So I think as soon as you can take the person to the emergency, that is helpful.
Thank you, Dr. Sahu. There is one more question. It is as in construction industry, workers such as welders and the gas cutters have long time exposure working in awkward postures. So, what could be the ways in order to avoid these MSDs, and what are the practices being followed in US?
Could you please
That's
repeat? Yeah, could you please repeat your question?
Yeah, there are workers like welders and the gas cutter usually works for longer duration in awkward postures. So, in order to avoid these MSDS, what can be done, and what are the precautions being taken in US scenario in the similar situations?
So, welders and gas cutters' main exposure is for respiratory, hazards like the welding fume. In the United States, we have the welding, what we call welding shield. So they have to use that welding shield in front of them. They have welding goggles, and the whole area has to be curtained so that the welding fume is not coming out of that area, and everyone is getting exposed. As far as the awkward postures you say, I do not think that welders and gas cutters are heavily exposed to awkward postures as the manual load handlers or other construction trade workers. Welders are basically well known for exposure to the respiratory hazards. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. There is one more question. Like, if are there any tests available to know that person is having a general heat related illness?
Yes, so I would like to answer that yes, there are many, but because the person, the layman, the person who is available with the victim, he may not know of all the tests, and tests are out of the purview for the layman people. So tests can be performed by doctors, but I will explain the tests also. But it is important to know that the person is suffering from heat related illnesses. So majorly there are these four which I discussed: heat rash, then heat cramps, heat exhaustion, and heat stroke. So heat stroke is most serious of them. Heat rash is the like least serious. There will be skin rashes, and there will be like ghamori jo India mein bolte hain. So there will be heat rashes which will appear on the skin, and they may desquamate also. So heat rash is simple. Heat cramp is when you feel muscle pain, and uska there can be severe version of muscle pain, and rhabdomyolysis may happen. So but that is uh, in a late stage. And the third thing is heat exhaustion. Heat exhaustion is one of the serious stages which may further lead to heat stroke. So heat exhaustion is to be identified. Here people, the person may feel dizzy, nauseated, and vomiting. So these kind of symptoms will occur. He will feel very uneasy. So if your body, if the person working with you, he is complaining of such symptoms, then again take him to a cool and shady place, so that it doesn't develop into heat stroke, because heat stroke is a serious condition which may lead to death. Because now how to know that the person is suffering from heat stroke? So now the proteins in your body, they have start denaturing. So there is in your CNS system, that is central nervous system, there is damage had started. So the person is feeling, there are convulsions, there are he is not speaking properly or coherently, and he may further go into coma. So these are very evident signs, and his blood pressure is falling, and sometimes his temperature is very high, because he is not able to, the evaporation is low, the whole body temperature is at 40. So these are, and these are specific symptoms based on which you should take the person to the hospital, where there will be many tests which will be done depending on the system. The renal function tests will be done, the coagulation profile of the person will be done, to to know what is the status, whether the denaturing of protein is already there and coagulation cascade has been hampered. So there are many other tests, liver function tests will be done. So these are the tests which, and most importantly, the electrolyte, ABG and electrolyte. So these are the tests which are done in serious stages of heat-related illnesses, that is heat stroke.
Yeah, thank
Thank
you. Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Murli. I think I will continue now for a few seconds. Yeah, I must thank all the panelists, starting from Professor Gogilan, Dr. Gogilan, who joined from Malaysia, Dr. Mona Lisa Shahu, who has joined from Kolkata All India Institute of Hygiene and Public Health, and also Dr. and Professor Priyadarshini Dasgupta, who has joined from US. I am very grateful and thankful to all of them for having taken out quite long time. Though it was planned for 1.5 hours, I think we have overshoot a little bit, but I think there are very good discussions during the presentations, and we have also recorded the proceedings. So I think it will be possible for Murli to create a link, and people can refer for further reference. If there is any further comment or questions coming to us, we will forward that to the speakers. So with this, may I request those who are present to switch on their cameras so that we can take a screenshot, and that can be shared with I mean, so all of the speakers and the participant can just unmute and make themselves visible, so that Murli can take a nice screenshot and make it a sort of, I think, widescreen screenshot also is available. As Murli, you are aware about all this, so kindly take a screenshot and share with all through some media.
Thank you.
Thanks to all participants for joining, and of course for the fantastic, very inquisitive queries and questions. Yeah, I can see people from various parts of the country, including the remote Barmer, Rajasthan, where heat stress is a big issue. Mr. Mukherjee, yeah, good. Yeah, Dr. Gogilan is available. I think if you are available, Dr. Gogilan, in somewhere and able to hear me, kindly, open your camera if possible. I think he's connected, but maybe in some other program. He mentioned to me that. Okay, so if all are ready, maybe 1, 2, 3, smile, and then Murli, please take some screenshot quickly. I think we have to also leave others for professors. Priyadarshini is a working day, I guess. Right. Okay, thanks to all of you once again. And we will have another opportunity perhaps sometimes later to connect and listen from the experts of the field. And of course, we will be able to get help or support in case you have any specific queries in future as well. Thank you very much. Murli, we can close with a formal thanks to vote of thanks. Yeah, quickly.
Thank you all for joining and making it this webinar a successful one. Thank you all the speakers for your informative session. Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.